Not in a creepy movie kind of way. No doors slamming, no loud ghosts screaming, awa, boo, ow, just stillness. A silence so deep it feels like it's listening. A feeling that someone, ow, or something, ow, is standing just out of view, waiting. That's exactly how people describe Marlowe House. A crumbling mansion, sitting alone on the edge of the Yorkshire moors, abandoned for decades, forgotten by most, but not by everyone. You see, every so often someone tries to go back. Someone inherits it, visits it, studies it, and then they disappear. No struggle, no goodbye, no explanation, just gone. Music shifts slightly, subtle piano notes like a ticking clock. Clara Hensley was the latest name on that list. A young historian, smart, logical, skeptical. She didn't believe in curses or spirits, but she believed in history. And when she found out she'd inherited a centuries-old estate from a distant relative she'd never met, she saw an opportunity. She packed her bags, grabbed her research notes, and drove straight into the fog. A brief pause. Cue. Music softens. What Clara did, TMT, no. Was that Marlowe House doesn't just keep secrets, it feeds on them. Marlowe House sits alone. No neighbors, no streetlights, just endless moorland stretching in every direction like a gray, breathing ocean. The driveway is half swallowed by weeds. Stone pillars lean as if tired of holding history. The iron gate, rusted shut. It creaks open only when the wind wants it to. Locals call it the Widow Watch, not because it looks out over anything, but because of what it looks into. They say the windows don't reflect the outside world. They show something else, something you shouldn't look at for too long. Most people in the nearby village won't even say its name. Ask about the house, and you'll get two reactions, a blank or a nervous glance toward the hills, followed by silence. The old records show dozens of owners, dozens of tenants, all leaving suddenly, or not leaving at all. There were rumors, always rumors, a seance gone wrong, a woman who vanished in front of her dinner guests, a piano that played on its own ow-ow, but only on stormy nights. But the truth? That's harder to find. The land deed was buried under layers of legal red tape. And the house itself? Left untouched since the 1960s. No one had lived there for over 60 years. Until Clara came back. She thought she was coming to uncover history. But some history doesn't want to be uncovered. Some history reaches back. Clara Hensley was a historian with a passion for the Victorian era. Smart, logical, and deeply curious, she didn't believe in curses or ghost stories. To her, the past was a puzzle to be solved, and Marlowe House was just another piece waiting to be uncovered. When she learned she'd inherited the old estate from a distant relative she'd never met, Clara saw it as the perfect opportunity to dive into history firsthand. She packed her bags, loaded her research notes, and set out alone, eager for a quiet place to work and think. The first time Clara stepped inside Marlowe House, she felt the weight of the years pressing down on her. Dust hung thick in the air, and silence filled every corner, but there was something else, something she could not explain. The house seemed almost alive, holding its breath. Despite the cold outside, Clara noticed a strange warmth inside, as if the walls themselves were guarding secrets she had yet to discover. Determined but cautious, she began to explore, unaware that with every step she took, the past was creeping closer. Clara spent the first day carefully exploring every corner of Marlowe House. She wandered through the grand staircase, its wooden banisters worn smooth by time, and the decayed study where dust-covered books lined the shelves. Strange symbols were carved into the walls, old, faded, and barely noticeable unless you looked closely. As evening fell, the house seemed to grow quieter, the kind of silence that presses against your ears. Then there were the clocks. Every single one in the house had stopped at exactly 3:07 a.m. At first, Clara thought it was a coincidence, a result of the house's long neglect. But as night settled in, she couldn't shake the feeling that something was watching her. She woke suddenly that night, the silence broken by an odd, distant knocking. There was a faint melody, like a lullaby drifting through the empty halls, though she could not find where it was coming from. The feeling of being watched only grew stronger, as if the house itself was alive and breathing around her. Curious about the strange history of Marlowe House, Clara decided to visit the nearby village. But when she asked the locals about the house, most people quickly shut down, avoiding eye contact or changing the subject. The few who did speak were hesitant, their voices dropping to whispers as they mentioned old stories. Stories no one wanted to believe but couldn't forget. At the village library, an elderly librarian quietly handed Clara a worn file filled with newspaper clippings. The headlines told of unexplained disappearances, eerie seances, and whispered rumors of black magic tied to Marlowe House. Each article painted a darker picture, revealing just how much pain and fear the house had caused over the years. It was clear that the house's past was tangled with secrets the village had tried to bury, but that Clara was now unraveling. While exploring Marlowe House one afternoon, Clara noticed something unusual about the fireplace in the main sitting room. A faint draft seemed to come from the stone hearth, even though the room was sealed tight. Curious, she pressed her hand against the wall and found a loose panel hidden behind the dusty bricks. With some effort, she managed to pry it open, revealing a narrow passageway she hadn't expected. The passage led to a small, secret room untouched by time. Inside, there was a simple wooden table, a lone chair, and on the table lay a leather-bound journal, its pages yellowed and fragile. The air in the room felt heavier, as if the walls themselves were holding their breath. Clara carefully opened the journal and began to read. The words were filled with sorrow and desperation, written by someone named Beatrice Marlowe, a woman whose grief seemed to seep through every line. Beatrice Marlowe's journal told a story of heartbreak and hope. Her husband had died far away in the Crimean War, leaving her alone in the grand house with a heavy, aching loneliness. In her grief, Beatrice opened the house to other widows, all women who had lost their husbands too, offering them a sanctuary where they could share their sorrow. But the house, it seemed, was not just a refuge. It was a place where the veil between the living and the dead grew thin. Strange things began to happen. Beatrice and the other widows experienced shared dreams, whispered voices in the dark, and shadows moving just beyond sight. Her handwriting grew more frantic with each entry. She spoke of a mysterious bell that rang without cause and a man in the mirror who watched silently from the glass. The sanctuary was slowly turning into something darker, something alive with sorrow and secrets. As Clara continued to read Beatrice's journal, she began to experience strange and unsettling dreams. Night after night, she found herself drowning in cold, dark water or trapped in flames that never burned out. Voices whispered her name just beyond hearing, echoing through empty halls she had never seen before. The dreams felt too vivid to be mere imagination. They felt like memories not her own. Even more unsettling, the journal's entries seemed to mirror these nightmares, as if Beatrice's grief and fear were reaching across time to touch Clara's mind. One afternoon, Clara discovered an old painting hidden behind a faded curtain, Beatrice's portrait. The woman's eyes seemed to follow Clara, filled with sorrow and warning. Meanwhile, the clocks in the house began to behave oddly, chiming loudly and suddenly, breaking the silence in ways that made Clara's skin crawl. Slowly, the line between Clara's reality and the haunted past of Marlowe House began to blur. Beatrice's final journal entries grew darker and more desperate. She wrote about a ritual she believed could bring her husband back, a ritual that required more than just grief and hope. It demanded sacrifices. According to her words, these sacrifices had to come from willing mourners, women with hearts open enough to believe in the impossible. One by one, the widows who had sought refuge in Marlowe House began to vanish without a trace. The atmosphere in the house grew heavier with each disappearance, as if the walls themselves were closing in. In her last chilling entry, Beatrice wrote, "It is done. The bell will ring. He will return at that very time, the same time all the clocks had stopped, hung like a dark promise, a moment when the past and present might collide." As days passed, Clara found herself increasingly trapped by the moor's thick fog. The world outside seemed to disappear. The GPS on her phone failed, and her calls went unanswered. She was completely alone, or so she thought. One morning, she discovered a second journal left mysteriously on the kitchen table, its pages addressed directly to her. The writing was unfamiliar, yet chillingly connected to the first. Voices began calling her name through the empty halls, sometimes soft and distant, other times sharp and urgent. Occasionally, the voices even sounded like her own. Slowly, Clara realized that she wasn't just reading Beatrice's story anymore. She was living it. The boundaries between her own reality and the house's haunted past were dissolving, pulling her deeper into the darkness that had consumed those before her. The final night in Marlowe House came with an unnatural stillness. The wind had died down and the fog pressed close against the windows like a living thing. Clara felt every shadow in the house stretch longer, every creak louder. The clocks began to chime again, striking 3:07, the time that haunted the house for decades. As the bells tolled, the air grew thick, heavy with a cold that seeped into her bones. Whispered voices surrounded her, soft but relentless, filling every corner of the room. Clara felt a presence watching her, waiting for something. She knew, deep down, this was the moment when past and present would collide. Whether she would escape or become another lost soul of Marlowe House hung in the balance. When morning finally broke over the moors, Marlowe House stood silent and still once more. Clara was gone, vanished without a trace, just like the others before her. The villagers whispered quietly among themselves, the old fears rekindled but never spoken aloud. The house remained, its windows staring blankly out into the mist, holding on to its secrets tightly. Yet, some say that on certain nights, if you listen closely, you can still hear faint footsteps in the hallways and a soft bell ringing somewhere deep inside. The haunting never truly ends. It waits, and it watches. Thank you for joining me on this journey through the haunting tale of Marlowe House. What do you think really happened to Clara? Was it the restless spirits of the past? A curse woven through time? Or maybe something even darker, hiding in the shadows of the moor? I want to hear your theories. Drop your thoughts in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you won't miss the next mysterious adventure. Until next time, stay curious and stay safe. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, hit that like button, subscribe, and ring the bell for more. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. I'd love to hear from you. See you in the next one. Bye for now.